Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another session of AC Connect. Thank you for deciding to spend an hour of your evening with us tonight. I'm very excited about the conversation we'll have. Tonight, Leah is with me as a co-host like she usually is. However, her screen isn't working, so she's in the background. We also have on the phones Laura Pratt, who has joined us for the past couple Connect sessions, and very excited to also welcome Nikki DeBlanco, the Vice Chair of AC tonight. So just a couple housekeeping things before we jump on in. My name is Lisa Hodges, and I'm on the board of AC, and my co-host, like I said, is Leah Blessed.
Hi, everybody. I'm Leah, and I apologize you can't see me. I even tried restarting my computer this afternoon to make sure it would work, but apparently that was not sufficient. And I am on the Alberta Leaders Caucus.
Just a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into tonight's discussion points. Just the technology, we are recording this session, so it'll be available on AC's website after for people who aren't able to join us tonight. If you don't want to speak, there is a question box that you're welcome to share your questions into. I believe that only the background people can see them, so you can, if there's something private that you want to share with us, you can just make sure that you don't want us to read it out. If you don't have a mic capability, please feel free to share it in the question box as well, and one of us can help with reading it out. You will also notice that there is a microphone. Everybody is on muted now, but if you would like to speak, just raise your hand, and then when we call on you, we'll unmute you from our side, and you just might need to unmute yourself from your side as well.
Hey, Lisa.
Yes.
Your audio is just getting spotty, so I wonder if you turn off your webcam for now, that may help.
Okay, is that better?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, guys.
Voices from the ether.
Alrighty. That's all of our housekeeping.
Yep, and we always put this one up. Our goal is to share information and hear from you and get to know what the priorities are in ECE in the province. We would really love this to be a place where we prioritize connection and we can have respectful conversation. We don't have all of the answers, and tonight's a little bit different because we are talking a bit more specifically about the regulation review and AC's paper around getting it right and what some of those recommendations can be. So we definitely have some information to share with you, but that's not to say that we have all the answers. And this is a system building process. So we want to get started on it. We want the ECE to feel confident to put their voices out there as this goes forward, because whether we like it or not, the reg review process starts June 15th. So we hope everyone can be as informed and involved in that as possible. All right. So we actually have a little slideshow this time that's informative.
We're just only seeing the base PowerPoint here. You aren't in presentation mode on the screen.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay, give me a sec.
And as Leah was saying, it is really important. We definitely want to hear from you. With the amount of people that we have on the line, we might not be able to hear from everybody directly. But if you don't get a chance to talk, please feel free to message us in that question box, or also to email AC. All of your opinions are very important to us, and we would love to hear from you, even if we don't get to you in person tonight.
Is there a slide now? Or
it's still, I see the slide, but it has jumped back to the, I don't know, the regular presenter.
Okay. I don't know why it keeps doing, apparently I'm technologically challenged today. I don't know why it keeps doing that, because it gives the whole slideshow in the background, but then it won't stay in present mode. So I will try my best.
Okay, well, I think it's there now. So like Leah mentioned, it's going to be a little bit different. We do have some information we would like to share with you tonight. And we're just going to chat a little bit about AECE, policy development, and advocacy. This was partly speared from last Connect conversation, where we were discussing of how are we going to keep quality in our system and things that everyone is doing to ensure that quality remains. And so these are some of the things that kind of mesh really, really well with the regulation review coming up, and how are we going to ensure quality is in there. And it was a great kind of marriage or mesh of the two for our presentation tonight.
Okay. So first and foremost, AECE believes that early childhood educators have the most important job in the world, and that we wouldn't have a system of early childhood education and care if we didn't have ECEs. So as professionals, we are the heart and soul of high quality early learning and childcare. And AECE's mandate is to develop a system, or to support that development, where ECEs are educated and well supported and well paid, and that our work is valued by employers, by peers, by other professionals, by families, and that public and political recognition of the value of early childhood educators and the important work that you do, that is really forefront in any changes or developments that happen in our early learning and childcare system in Alberta.
And when we're talking about educators, I think it's important that we acknowledge that it's out of school programs, it's early learning and childcare centers, it's preschool programs, and it's day home. So everybody is important, and these are the people that AECE is advocating for.
Absolutely, and those are all parts of this system that we're considering. I'm really trying to make it work, I'm sorry.
As Leah mentioned earlier, this is AECE's vision, and really what the majority of our work is based on. And the vision is to see this field as a recognized profession where educators are well qualified, well compensated, and are respected as professionals, valued for the work, and supported in providing high quality care for Alberta's children and families.
And the mission,
and through
really,
that,
go for it, Lisa.
No, go ahead, Lee.
It's hard when we can't see each other. So the mission really supports that, and AECE's mission is to transform Alberta's early learning and childcare workforce into a recognized profession. So that's a long game. That's a long-term picture. So a big part of that is AECE being the voice of early childhood educators, advocating for those higher educational standards, for better wages, better working conditions, and really thinking about what are the comprehensive system-wide supports that can make that happen. And that's sort of where this regulation review kind of falls into this, is that this is the opportunity we have as a community to advocate for that comprehensive system that is going to meet our needs and that will fulfill all of these things. So it really means looking at advocating for respect, support, compensation, and influence that early childhood educators deserve. So when we look at the research, and that's something that is really important to know, that AECE has invested countless hours of time and dollars into investigating the research around what is quality and what are the things that really impact quality in early childhood education. And what really comes out of that research, international research, is that the number one indicator of quality is the level of qualification of early childhood educators. So our education and qualification is what makes quality ECE. So increasing qualifications of early childhood educators is really where to start in terms of building the quality of this ECE system that we have in Alberta.
And especially if we go back, and I think it's always helpful for me to keep that vision in mind of that workforce that is recognized, supported, and compensated. And like Leah said, with the research, the qualifications are huge. However, how do we do this? We realize it's not an easy feat. It is truly system development. I came across a quote on Facebook this week that I think is very timely to share tonight as we kind of dive into this a little bit more. Rahm Emanuel says, "You never want a serious crisis to go to waste." And I'm sure everybody can agree that we are in the midst of a very unprecedented and uncertain time. COVID, in many ways, has exposed the essential nature of our work, which is really great. However, it has also uncovered some of childcare's biggest weaknesses. And although this seems kind of like a weird, inopportune time to do the regulation reviews, and it's just one more thing that we need to focus on when we are so stressed and worried about just even getting back to work, I think that, you know, educators are really adept at changing when they need to. You know, our day never goes quite as planned, and I think we are so, as a field, are so resilient and really do have the ability to take this, you know, turning lemons into lemonade. And I think as we approach this regulation review, I think this is really an opportunity that we can look at where we have the opportunity, I guess, to build a better system. And it's the whole system that needs that revamp. And part of that revamp, I think we'll see in the next couple slides here.
Oh, goody. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that's where we're going now. So, I mean, what you said, Lisa, is so opportune, because it does feel like just another thing that's going to get in the way of us actually doing our jobs in terms of thinking about regulation review and what does all of this stuff mean and where is all this stuff coming from that you know, that AECEA is putting out in terms of information. But like you said, it really is an opportune time to think about, you know what, this really has exposed what some of the really big gaps and holes and needs are, while at the same time giving us the picture that it is a system and there's lots of moving parts. And to really make a substantial and lasting change, we have to consider how those parts fit together and how, when we're looking at where to start, what is the ripple effect of that starting point? And so that's really where that research base comes in, to say, you know what, the best place to start to have all these ripples go forward to really impact a quality system is to start with this piece around educators and systems. So thinking about, and I don't know if this is actually working or not, so I'll press the button again. So thinking about what does a well-functioning, high-quality early learning and childcare system look like, this just gives a picture of what some of the pieces are. So we, of course, we have early childhood educators. You know, we can't do any of this work without having early childhood educators, and we work together in teams and workplaces. So that's another place where this happens. And another piece that has to be on board is post-secondary and other partners, because where does this education and qualification coming from, and how are we building capacity in that space to make sure that the educators who come out of that are ready and able to do this work? And that ties very closely into that legislation and investment piece. And then sort of surrounding all of that is the research and the policy making and what that actually looks like in practice. So when we're doing our jobs day after day, what are we doing that is upholding this quality system and that is providing quality to support children and to make sure that they have their needs met?
I think this picture is really important also to, you know, understand that with the regulation review, changes in the regulation review, we by no means are going to be the magic, you know, fix all that we're looking for to kickstart a new system. It is just one piece of the puzzle. However, it is important that we need to start somewhere. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg, you know, what's going to come first. But at some point, we need to take a stand for our profession and say, you know what, this is the front, like, this is our first step towards that professionalization of my field. This is where we're going to start.
And so we've kind of addressed this, but just to really think about why now? Why are we doing all of this now? Why is this information coming now? And really, because it has to, because this review is happening in, I don't know, 10 days-ish is when it's starting, June 15th. So although AECEA has made several asks to the minister to give more time so that educators and professionals are not in this space of being extremely busy and stressed and worrying about, you know, everything else we've just gone through before we begin this process. But the minister has decided that this is when it is happening. So unfortunately, that is what we have to do. And there's been so much national attention and research on what are the gaps, what are the system failures in early learning and childcare across the country. And that's not where I want to be yet. And so we have a lot of research and evidence even right now to really make our case for what needs to happen. And people are listening and are invested right now. So although it's not maybe the time we would have chosen, it's not a bad time either for us to do this work, because COVID has really exposed early learning and care as the essential service that it is. I mean, in our government speak, economically, that's the most important so that parents can work. But in terms of developing children and citizens who are going to be able to go on and continue contributing to societies. So I think that it's an important time for us to take an opportunity to speak often and speak loudly about what a new ELCC system could look like.
And I think it's important to think as well that the recommendations that AECEA is putting out isn't something that's been slapped together in a hurry because of the tight timeline of the regulation review. It's something that's really been in the works for a number of years through numerous consultations, preparing for the time that the regulation review was going to reopen, AECEA's 10-point plan. All of this has been in the work, like I said, for a couple of years. And now is the time that we really get to put it forward and to use it. So yeah, just something to keep in mind that this isn't something brand new. This is something that has really been time, and like Leah has mentioned numerous times, the research that has gone into it to make sure that we are, for lack of a better term, getting it right.
Okay, oh, slideshow, why must you be so painful? All right, oh gosh, I can't actually see what you see, but I hope that you see the right thing.
I think we're still just on the deck of slides there, Leah.
Oh,
jump back.
Okay. Different slide now that says before 2008?
Yep, that's the one.
Yay! Okay, so we wanted to walk through a little bit of kind of how we've gotten in a really basic and very general way. This is by no means the entire picture, but in terms of sort of qualifications. So before 2008, we had level 1, level 2, level 3. And then in 2008, until now, we have the level 1 was taken as is to child development assistant. Then level 2 was child development worker, and level 3 is child development supervisor. So we basically had a change in names. So this is our current reality. And I may have to do this. No, yay, there we go. Okay. And what we're really looking to do is to break this down and build up a new system. So really looking at what are the levels and qualifications of qualifications that we want ECEs to have moving forward. So the building blocks of a sustainable childcare system. So looking at renaming and thinking, what does it mean to be a qualified early childhood educator? What specific types of education and support are required so that ECEs can be recognized as professionals, can be well compensated and well respected professionals, and valued for their important work. So part of that is looking at what are the qualifications. Oh my word. Okay. So painful. So painful. I'm sorry.
And I think as we get back to that slide there, by no means, is ECE 1 a replacement of the previous, how level 1 became a child development assistant. That's not being replaced by ECE 1. Like, if we really think about this, is a completely different system. It's almost like comparing apples to oranges. We're not in the same system anymore. We're in this new, more comprehensive system where compensation and support are really going to stem from is this education and the qualifications of the educators.
So really looking at that, I mean, we've got this new way of thinking about qualification, and it's supported by some of the other pieces that are in that Getting It Right document around pedagogy and the rights of children. And, that really looks at what it is that's really important in terms of developing this system. Things like how we talk about children in the licensing regulations, how we think about how do we make a consistent educational pedagogy that everyone is using so that we have a plan for how we're working with children. So there's lots of pieces to this. And like Lisa said, it's not a matter of just slapping new names on the old way of doing things. It's a rethinking of how we want this system to look so that the pieces fit together better, so that we have consistent support at all levels of the system. And I mean, it goes back to our vision that well-qualified, well-compensated early childhood educators are respected as professionals and valued for their important work, and supported in providing that really high quality childcare for children and families. And that continue to match education and experience. And so that really, that whole system is working together. And that's sort of how we'd hope to move forward through this licensing review and moving forward as a field, that this new system is really what we're aiming for.
And I think also something that comes to mind as we talk about the different qualifications of educators right now in the way the system is working is that based on I'll use the word level here, but hesitantly, the level of qualification that educators have, oftentimes a wage enhancement or compensation is attached to that qualification or that title. Now, by, again, really stressing that this new system, it truly is a new system. So ECE 1, again, does not replace level 1 or CDA, nor will it come with the compensation that a level 1 and a CDA are receiving. It'll come with the proper compensation that should be available to somebody with a certificate. So just something to keep in mind, because that compensation piece is huge for retaining educators, for attracting educators into this field, and for really making space for growth and professional development.
So this is from AECEA's 10-point plan document, and it sort of walks through the steps that they envisioned around how would we get here. So this planning, like Laura said, has been happening for a number of years. The 10-point plan involved planning and consultation with educators across the province. Prior to working on the Getting It Right document, there was consultations with educators across the province, and like I have said lots of times, diving into research and really figuring it out. What does this look like? And so kind of in short order, we're at this communicating place where AECEA and its partners are launching a campaign to let Albertans know about the importance of early childhood educators. And so a lot of this messaging you've been seeing going out, that is the goal, is to let Albertans know about the importance of early childhood educators, so that when we move on to these next steps, as a field, we're ready, the public is informed and ready, and we can move forward together with a different vision for what our system could look like.
And truly that quality piece is huge, because, you know, a safe system is very, very different to a quality system. And it's actually one of the rights of a child is access to quality education. Some of the other pieces, sorry, go ahead, Leah.
No, go ahead, Lisa.
I was going to say some of the other steps that AECEA envisions happening, and there by no means is the set in stone, it's going to happen, but to reach the vision, these are the steps that through research and consultation AECEA believes needs to happen. So when we need some bridging, so no more equivalencies. Early childhood educators have plans, so there's educational bridging plans that we can bring people with the knowledge that they have into the specialization of early learning and childcare. This legislation is requirements for professional learning plans and higher educational standards. So all of this is potentially part of, hopefully part of the regulation review. It is all outlined in the Getting It Right document. The next one here is educating. So Alberta's post-secondary institutions have the funding they need to continue to develop these programs and courses. It's been extremely exciting to see more degrees popping up around the province, where educators are able to go back to school or start their schooling and coming out with a degree into the field. And then the next goal is reaching 100. So 100 pedagogical leaders have been trained as mentors for ECEs, and 100% of early learning and childcare programs are following Alberta's curriculum framework. And that's what Leah touched on earlier, just about that, that speaking the same language and knowing what to expect in all of our programs.
And this is these are really big visionary steps, but they speak to the fact that this isn't just a rush job, that there's time and effort that we're going to need to take in all of these steps, and that it's really going to take partnerships, around that circle and within the system to figure out what each of these pieces are, because everybody has a different role to play in terms of, and we all know, it brings itself up in what comes across our desk every day in terms of, we have paperwork from, we submit this to subsidy and it ties to this at accreditation, and then we have to talk to our licensing officer about that, and then there's health over here. So we sort of know inherently there's a lot of moving pieces, but to really get this going, it means we're drawing from legislation, and we're drawing from education, and we're drawing from, pedagogy, and we're drawing from, how all of these things are working together. So none of this is a snap fix, but we're really hoping that we can lay a solid foundation, particularly through the regulation review, in which to move forward. And all of the sort of answers and ways that that's going to look, and the sort of specific milestones that we're going to reach, we can't necessarily know that right now, but we can have a vision for how that's going to look, and when we need different people to work together with us, and how we can all have a part in these different steps towards this plan. So should my computer decide to be kind to me? There. No, not there. There. Huh. These are the last sort of 4 pieces of that. So wages, that all early childhood educators have at least a 1-year certificate in the field, and wages really reflect education, experience, and value to society in terms of the work that we do. That this no longer is a chronically underpaid field that people might stop in for a few years before they can get to something good, or that people feel they really want to stay in, but it's very difficult to continue to live with a high quality of life on the wages we get. Developing a code of ethics and standards of practice for early childhood educators. and an association that early childhood educators are members of a professional association that represents their interests. And we did it. All early childhood educators have at least a 2-year diploma in the field, and ECEs are recognized as professionals with professional wages and benefits. So as you can see through all of those steps, like I said, we're on a journey and there is a way to go. And we're hoping to lay the foundation to start this path.
Yeah, and on the journey, I think it really does need to begin with a step and a brave step. And so who in the field is going to be ready to take that brave step forward to say, you know what, we need this change to happen, and we need this change to happen now. So I think those are all of our slides for tonight. We would like to open it up. Am I right, Leah? That's all the slides, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would like to open it up for some questions from the audience. Just as a reminder, this is a respectful place of sharing and getting to learn from each other through conversation. And if you would like to speak, just make sure you raise your hand or pop a question in the question box and we can read it out for you. And then when Laura calls on your name, make sure that you unmute your mic on your side as well.
Lisa and Leah, hi, it's Nikki. I'm wondering if I can just add a quick point, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
For sure.
Okay, hi everyone, it's Nikki. So that was a great job, you guys, on that presentation. I've done versions of this presentation, many of them. So it was really refreshing to see you both do it. So thank you so much. You really represented it really well. One thing that I remember when AECEA board members and others were traveling the province consulting with educators, one thing I remember saying all the time was, you know, just honoring everybody in this field and thanking everybody, no matter what level, where you work or what you do, because everybody has come to this field because they obviously have a passion for working with children. And so it's really to know that as you know, I've been working on this work and doing this research for many years, and through all of this work and through all of these changes, we've always we've always listened to stories, and we've always heard people's stories of where they come from and the works and the challenges that they have been through. So I just think it's so important to honor the, okay, I'll turn my camera on too. I just think it's so important to honor where everybody's at, and that know that AECEA definitely advocates for everybody, like basically like a net, that we cast a net, that we want everybody to catch everyone and everybody to rise up in. And so we don't have all the answers of what all those bridging plans look like and all those professional learning plans are, because we have to do those things in consultation with our industry partners, or not, I don't like that word industry, but our partners. And so those are like post-secondary institutions and stuff. So I mean, some of those details haven't been worked out, but as Lisa and Leah were saying, is that we have to set some intentions in order to move forward. And given the fact that this reg review is upon us, it's very important to put some of those things out. But I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart how honored we are to have worked with you all on this. And I know that there's many more people that we need to speak to and hear their voices, and want to know that we will honor all of your voices in all of this.
Thank you, Nikki. I think that's very important. Yeah, how grateful we are for everybody that is in this field.
Are we ready to start taking questions, if I can speak?
I think so.
Okay. So yeah, just as a reminder, in order to speak verbally, we just ask that you put your hand up. Should be a little orange or yellow button on your toolbar. If you do not have a question, or your question was already answered, I just ask that you lower your hand by clicking the same button. Otherwise, we'll cycle through. I'll let you know when you have been unmuted and are able to speak. So we will start with Melanie Nickel. You have been unmuted if you have a question or comment to make.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for having this tonight. I was just wondering who from AC was going to be on the task force discussing the regulation changes. Minister Schultz said that she had put the task force together, and I was just wondering if there were several of you going or one of you going, or what that plan looked like for the next couple of weeks.
So AC has not been invited to be on that task force. And that is definitely a problem. We have been communicating with the minister since December. And when the licensing, the Getting It Right document was ready, and we had it broken down into some of the pieces, we had started talking with ministry staff about those changes. I mean, none of it was a surprise. We've been talking to the ministry staff and previous ministers and governments for a very long time about these changes. But no, we have not been invited to be on this working group. And as far as we know, that working group has been set now. So I'm not sure how you feel about that, but if any of you out there feel strongly that AC should have been put on that working group, we would ask that you send an email to CS. Maybe Laura can look it up and put it in the chat for you, and then just let them know that if you feel disappointed that we're not on there. It doesn't mean that we won't be able to still consult. We've been told that we're a key stakeholder and we'll be able to meet with the MLA. The MLA is Tracy Allard from Grand Prairie, and she'll be leading the consultation. So we will be meeting with her or participating when they say they're going to be doing some table talk sessions, virtual table talk sessions. And so we are assuming at this point that we will be in those sessions.
And believe us, it is not for lack of trying. There have been letters, many letters and phone calls and conversations, and they're not stopping. There are still things that have gone this week to advocate that AC needs to be a part of that conversation. So
my concern is with that task force is that it's going to be made up of maybe that same group that was part of removing accreditation. I'm not saying but I know it was a bunch of private programs up north, and what I really want to see is that task force should be comprised of the associations as well as the secondary education, right? Because Bow Valley, Mount Royal, Red Deer, Medicine Hat, all of those places should be there because they're the ones who are frontline. It was very frustrating even to see some of the changes happening with COVID without any consultation to the licensing officers or the health inspectors. So I'm concerned that the voices that are being asked are the ones with the answers that they want to receive, not the ones willing to say, here's the tough answers, but we'll be part of the solution. So I would strongly recommend keep advocating, as will be.
And we'll need your voice, right? So, I mean, that we have been doing that, and Leaders Caucus has been asking to be on that as well. So we'll need your voices to let them know that that's how you feel. We do know that there's going to be an online survey probably launched on, I mean, we know as much as you know, really, from what we've been hearing on town halls and stuff. So, but it sounds like there will be online surveys. And so as much as we can mobilize the voice around moving forward and some of the changes that we'd like to see, then that's the best that we can do at this point, we think. But we've been told that the working group has been chosen.
Well, thank you. I think it's definitely not a surprise based on the last year. I'm trying to be very positive and not feeling my soul crushing.
Yeah, I mean,
we hear you, Mel.
Yeah, as you know, AC was really active in getting associations and stakeholders on board with the ask for programs to get some provincial funding support in order to stay operating and being able to come back and operate. So we were very, very vocal at the beginning of COVID, and so some of that might have affected our Christmas card list of the minister.
Looking to make friends, we're looking to make changes. So we appreciate it and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the hands up. There's a few questions in here, most around like who will be paying for the increased wages and such. And I think you guys can speak to that, or at least what our vision would be of how it would function.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So if one of the things when Lisa and Leah were talking about the system development, we put early childhood educators at the top of that system development, because we see early childhood educators really as the foundation of any really well-functioning, high-quality system. And but when you think about all those parts of the system, funding and the way that it's built is all part of that. So if you think of the way that it is right now, of course, there's never going to be enough money to pay us well and to move us forward into more of a professionalized system. But if you think about changing the funding of a system so that we don't just get funding through, you know, like subsidy and parent fees and things like that, where you think about it more of a system as almost in the way of a school system is built. And so there's more of a foundation of funding that's inserted into the system. So it's hard to say. Certainly, AC. It will always, like, that's one of the reasons for moving forward, is because we want all educators to have received the compensation that they deserve, the respect and the value from society. So that knowing that we need to flip the system around so that it's not just dependent on parent fees and actually needs to be invested by governments and society will contribute to paying us better. Now, good examples of these are if you think of other professions, right? Like social workers, teachers, you know, I mean, sometimes we say doctor, I mean, there's all of those types of professions. And so when you move towards more of a qualified profession and you're more recognized, then things like compensation fall in line with all of those things. So I hope that makes sense. But in the current, it's very hard to realize in the current system that we have. And so those are the pieces that need to build up as alongside of us attaining higher qualifications.
And we're not the only province to do this either. Ontario was on this journey several years ago. Manitoba has started this recently. So we do have, you know, partners to look to. And across Canada, the childcare, I'm going to get this wrong, research and something unit, and the CCCF, many articles, and they've been sharing many articles that have been written and that have been researched and put out in the last 3 months that really look at that exact aspect of it, that when we look at it from this childcare is funded entirely by parent fees, that is one of the major holes that was really illustrated through this pandemic, that's a problem, and that is not sustainable, and that our children are worth more than that, and the people who care for them and educate them day in and day out are worth more than that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of when I say there's some momentum behind this right now, in recognizing that this was a bad time and we need to do better.
Thanks, guys. I do have one that's just more of a reminder from Terry Calder, just saying that to remember about preschools, and I think all along ACE and ALC has really pushed on that front because it doesn't make any sense that preschools have not been included whatsoever. So I think, go ahead, Nikki.
Oh, I was just going to say, Laura, you know as well as I do, because we worked together on these things for so long, is that when AC had the PD funding for CDSs, every single year that we put in an application for funding, we asked repeatedly for preschools to have access to that funding, and family day homes to also have access to that funding. And we, year after year after year, and we brought lots of evidence forward of why they should be there. So wherever we were able to advocate for preschools in the whatever responsibilities we had, or whatever policy levers we had, we always did our best to keep that voice forefront. So I just want you to know that AC has always had the back of preschools and have always kept that at our forefront.
Thanks, Nikki. If anybody does want to verbally ask a question, like I said, just put your hand up in here and I can open it. I'm seeing a couple in regards to educational assistants and how they would fit in. My initial thought would be that those who have certification, their education would be evaluated like everybody else's to see how they fit into the system there. And then, yeah, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, so one of the process, we know that everybody has to, well, first of all, the research is really clear. Lisa and Leah said that in the presentation, is that the minimum standard, or the number one indicator of quality in early learning in childcare programs is education in early learning and care. And that's not to undermine wherever anybody is at or how they came to this field or anything, but that is just what the research says, and that is what other jurisdictions have been moving towards, and have as certifications. Some other countries actually have degrees as minimum standards of working with young children. So we can't dispute it. It is what it is. And so, sorry, Laura, what was the original question?
Just how they'd fit into the system,
yes.
if they'd be able to continue working within childcare.
So the tool that would be to help everybody identify where they're at is the professional learning plan. And so with help from post-secondaries institutions and other experts in the field, we would have to look at where everybody's at, definitely give credit where credit is due to what has brought everybody into this place, and then make sure that a system is built, or courses are built around what those needs are. And so some of the work that we want to do now is look at what some of those common pathways are, professional pathways that many of us will actually have to go through to get to these next levels.
And I think it's important to look at too that these changes aren't going to happen overnight. It's not like going to be one morning we wake up and all of a sudden everything's different. Like Nikki said, it's really a net system where we want to bring everybody, we value everybody, everybody's important the way they got here, we want to bring them with us, but we do need to set a standard for our field, because this is the profession that we want to professionalize it, and there needs to be some base standard that is set moving forward, and that we do need to have some way that is a starting point. And this really is the beginning, the starting point for us.
That's great. Thanks, Lisa. And Nikki. Okay, we've got a hand up here. The name is Ted. Oh, maybe not. I lied, I think. Yeah. I had one and then this keeps refreshing. Curious to hear your perspective on what shortfalls were brought to light by COVID. So I think a lot. But what do you guys think?
Go ahead. I'm sure that Lisa and Lee have been in these AC Connect seminars, probably hearing a lot. So
Yeah.
Well, I think for myself, just the compensation piece has been a huge one. If we look at potential, other fields and how they were able to sustain keeping their staff on through all this, whereas I know a lot of people I've spoken to and even myself have been laid off since COVID, and still very, very uncertain about when and if my job will be there for me in the next couple months. So having a more comprehensive system might lend itself to being able to protect the educators a little bit better, would be one of my realizations.
yeah, certainly not all. Oh, sorry.
No, all you.
Oh, I was going to just say that certainly not all provinces have laid off all their ECEs. So in Alberta, where we have like 16 to 17,000, or we had 16 to 17,000 ECEs laid off overnight, that isn't what happened everywhere else. I mean, some other provinces did actually have to do that as well, but where ECEs were, I would argue, more valued or more rooted within a system, then they were better taken care of, and sometimes even given top-up pay. And that's even just to not even necessarily be at work, just to make sure that they were well during this, as opposed to our ECEs making 55% or less of their salary on or their wages on EI. So. And actually, I was in a webinar the other day about Norway, and they didn't lay anybody off. And Norway is actually a common system like ours. Like Alberta, they have a lot of private programs. It's not the whole country is not for profit. It's about 50-50 or so. And still, they were able to make ECEs a priority and keep them employed and made sure they had a living wage and were there for that, so that those ECEs could be there for their families as well and stuff. So there is better ways to do things.
Yeah, and Janet just put in the chat here, but from Melanie, a shortfall she noticed is not being considered essential services, which that was a huge shortfall I noticed, where it's like you want essential, like healthcare, to be able to go into work. They need to have somebody to care for their children, which means childcare. Yeah, I think there's a lot that I've noticed, a lack of clarity, a lack of cohesiveness between, say, licensing officers and such. And I know there's been a lot of confusion, but I think you guys mentioned everything else that I could think of. If you guys if the crowd has anything that they would like to contribute or anything, feel free to put it into that the question box and I will read it out.
What stood out for me was really the fully sort of business market model is insufficient for this type of work, that it doesn't uphold the needs of children or the needs of early childhood educators. it was a sort of delicate web, and lots of holes have been punched in it. And the really grave undervaluing of caring for children, that it's sort of, maybe it was just seen as an extra rather than a necessity. And it's now just sort of seen as an economic band-aid. So that's sort of what stood out for me.
And we definitely don't want those band-aid solutions. We need something better to be able to build that strong system.
So Laura, is there anything else coming up?
I've got one more hand up.
Okay.
And then I think we can move on more or less. So Tatiana Sokolova, sorry if I mispronounced that. You've been unmuted. If you have a question or comment to make.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hi guys. First of all, I would like really say thank you for all hard job you're doing, because definitely the field needs some changes and reformation, like no doubts about that. However, I have some concerns in terms of the human factor. You know, you're talking about bridging education and talking about some classes, and some of us gonna be like in retirement mode rather than schooling mode. So it's just a concern I would like to bring, because it's very stressful for people who got good education overseas, which is not quite recognized here, and our certificates were based on our overseas education. So it's going to be very, very difficult for us, again, looking for retirement rather than schooling. And also, like, I didn't quite got, are you guys kind of planning to move toward a governmental funded field rather than business? Like, how this stands? Because for me, like, it makes sense, but I mean, Canada probably, and we're not ready for totally funded children's services. But yeah, where do you stand on this? Is it not going to be business anymore?
I'll take a stab at answering that. So first of all, we hear you. We know that, and you've probably worked in this field for years and years, and so thank you so much. And so we definitely, we need to figure these pieces out, right? And so last time that the regulations were changed and there was some higher levels put into place, they gave quite a bit of leeway or advance notice. And so ideally in the regulations, we would have some of those changes that Lisa and Leah saw in there around levels of certification. We would see that in the next number of years. So it's not something we're asking to be in place on January 2021, where they bring out the fresh set of regs. So just like, let's not panic about that right now. So we hear you. Those are the pieces that we need to honor people like you that have been in this field like that. So we will be working over the coming months and years to figure those pieces out. The part about government funding. So I know Leah also mentioned, you know, the market system and stuff. So a system that works really well for places like Alberta, where we have actually 70% of our programs are for profit, and only about, you know, like less than 30% are not for profit. So, but you can have not for profit. There's just so many different categories of programs that we have. You know, we have some programs that are attached to schools and rec centers and standalone and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, we have so many situations. But what we have seen in other jurisdictions, and PEI is a great example of this, even though it's much smaller, but also kind of easier to look at because it's smaller, is that in order to receive government funding and public funds, there needs to be public accountability. And so those types of things, you can still have a sort of a mixed market system. It doesn't have to be a not-for-profit system. It doesn't have to be a government system. It can be a mixed market system in which people can still operate either privately, not-for-profitly, publicly, however, whatever works. But the funds that they receive are more accountable. So things like parent fee scales and wage floors. So those are just some of the examples of what can be put in place in order to be more accountable, and then can have a not moving to a government system, but more of a publicly accountable system, if that makes sense.
Okay, like, you know what, like, since you were talking about this, like, I'm thinking about, like, because, like, so you, as you said, 70% are profitable. Like, I've been always kind of, it doesn't sit well with me that people charge unreasonable prices. Like, the pricing system should be kind of guide, like, you know, some guidance and some restrictions, because, like, I mean, like parent fee, because, like, prices changes, like, it's, you know what I mean? It should be more unified and something controlled, more controlled, because we're talking about essential children's services. It's not for fun. So are you looking at this at all? Or, because you know what, my concern is like for some business owner, I'm business owner, but for some business owners, the margin is huge of profit. It should not be in children's services whatsoever. Like, we just should be able to kind of pay salary for ourselves and, you know, leave some money for development, but not for huge profit. Like, this is kind of another concern, but you don't have to answer.
Well, I mean, we know, I think you said that you are a director or owner. So
yeah, I'm owner, yeah.
Okay, and so you know, as well as, you know, any of us that have been studying this stuff, is that you know, your number one budget line is paying your staff, right? And so you can only charge your fees can only go so high. And really there's, you know, for the majority of those, what you could say for-profit programs, which really the profit is probably not really there, because if they're running a quality system and putting a quality program and putting a lot of that funding back into their business, the profits are really, it's not a thing. But you're right. I think it is for large sort of corporate, sometimes what we call big box, then there is some issues because there's sometimes stakeholders involved. And so there's things that, you know, the business and the program are more accountable to their stakeholders, their investors, as opposed to children and families. And so I think when we talk about system building, and we need to make sure that we have our vision in the right place, and we know that we're moving towards is the right thing to do, and that's always to make sure that we're building the best system possible with the highest quality for children, families, and that our educators are very well supported, compensated, and well educated.
Okay, no, perfect. And just quick one. So whatever enhancement, we're still gonna get some enhancement, some funding. So will it be depending, the amount of it, will it be depending on our level?
You know what, we don't have any sort of recommendations necessarily. We in those areas of compensation, like I think you're talking about wage enhancement. And yeah. So we definitely don't want anybody to get paid any less than they're already getting paid. And so yeah, we'll exactly. We'll advocate for higher levels of wage enhancement, but then also, like what I was saying around earlier, if we can flip the system on its head where it's funded a bit differently, then there's more funds available that don't just specifically come from parent fees in order to pay ECEs the proper wages that they deserve.
Okay, and like just how long do you think it's gonna take to kind of start implementing? Like, what stage you are at right now?
So when they were talking about the 10-point plan, we used to fondly call that the 10-year plan. We've taken the years off of it because we don't know. I mean, there are things, if we can get some traction in the regulations here and we can get some idea of when, if some of those changes are in the certification levels we're going to be put into the regulations, given a certain timeline, then we would know better. But at this point, we just have the proposed plan that we've been taking on the road for a number of years, and we'll continue to advocate for that plan.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. And again, doing a great job for advocating for all of us. And yeah, changes need to be done. Thank you very much.
Thanks for all the questions.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.
Okay, I think that is it for tonight.
Well,
So
thank
we
you so much, everybody, for joining us. I know Leah's got one more thing before you go, but I just did want to say thank you for spending some time tonight with us. It was really great to get to hear from everybody, and it was great to have Nikki join us as well with her expertise to help us answer some questions. Sorry, Leah, over to you.
No, thank you. You did that part, so that's great. Because yes, I do want to say thank you, everyone. And as we have made our tradition, we're going to end with a little Wordle, just to get us thinking about what are the quality pieces that are most important to us. And just to echo what Lisa said, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your ideas, and thank you so much, Nikki, for being a part of it. So I will share my screen, and you can put in the little code at menti.com and answer the question, what words do you use to describe quality in what childcare looks like, or what quality childcare looks like? And once you start putting in your responses, we don't have anything else to offer, so you're welcome to log off. And the date will come out for the next one. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
And thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. The programs that are starting to go back, preschool programs and day homes, out of school, everybody, thank you very much for your hard work and dedication to this field.